Jesus. Holy Jesus. Dude, you're freaking me out. Gage. Good evening, everybody. We are right on the edge of dark. I've got my new headlamp on here, but we're not going to use it. In the next 20 minutes, it is going to be pitch black. The plan is to walk the 90-acre trail. It has been very windy the last 2 days. And last night, I went to bed at 12:48. At 12:54, I sat bolt upright. The wind was just howling, the house was shaking, and I heard screaming. And it didn't sound like the fox to me. I don't know what I heard. It was muffled by the wind, but it sounded like a person screaming. And my neighbors have said that to me before. It sounds like a person screaming. I heard it 3 times. By the time I got out of bed, went into the next room, grabbed the camera, I didn't hear it anymore. And the wind was ferocious last night. I actually was making a video for you guys yesterday, so you will see that where we talk about my new headlamp, and you guys will see how windy it was yesterday. That wind is really scary. As I was cleaning up the tree out there, I kept checking around me because it just was blowing so hard. Tonight, the plan is Gage and I are setting out on the 90-acre trail. I will be filming with infrared and with an infrared flashlight only. So as it gets darker, I'm not going to be able to see anything except for what I'm looking at on the screen. We're not going to have any lights. Nobody's going to see us. We're not going to see them unless they're 30 meters away. As I'm walking, we will be recording sound. I will be listening. Tonight, I want to tell you guys about the Trickster. We talked about this in a previous video that I would present what the Trickster is and some stories of the Trickster. Well, that is going to be this video. So I am going to tell you guys that story as we are out walking the 90-acre trail. If anything interrupts my storytelling, we will stop the story, which is already a pre-recorded overlay we're going to put on here, and we'll jump to the live action if we hear or see anything. Otherwise, I want you guys to keep your eyes peeled because we're going to be walking and checking the forest. So not only are you guys going to be listening to my story, you're going to be helping me check this footage. And I'm on the lookout for whatever the heck it was I heard last night screaming. Maybe. I don't know that I want to find it, but we're going anyway. One last thing before we get started. This is what the forest looks like right now to the naked eye. So even though it's going to look a lot brighter with the night vision on, we are very close to dark. So are you ready, Gage? Let's do this. In today's video, I want to discuss something different. A character from native lore. I mentioned this character to you guys in a previous video and said we would do an in-depth review. This character that we're going to talk about today is the Trickster. And the Trickster belongs to many different religions, mythological stories, especially Native Americans. There are at least a dozen tribes in North America that have some form of the Trickster in their mythology and their legends that either describes how the people came to be or the rules of life, how rules can be broken and reestablished. That's the Trickster's role. The Trickster breaks physical boundaries. He can be a shapeshifter. Quite often he is associated with the Coyote or Old Man Coyote in the western tribes of North America. He has been known to be associated with the fox or the raven, many different animals. He mocks authority. He questions and disrupts rules, social establishment. Quite often, the Trickster is also needed for birth or rebirth, change. These are just some of the things that the Trickster is associated with. I want to talk to you guys also about legends of the Trickster. I have a couple of great stories that I've found online. Old North American native tribes. If I know where they came from, I will tell you guys. Quite often these legends are not attributed to anyone. The author is unknown. These were recorded in the early 1900s. Oral tradition is passed down through the natives. There was no writing, so these stories were remembered for many generations, and they weren't changed. The first story is the Great Spirit names the animal people, how Coyote came by his powers. And this story was recorded from Mourning Dove and came in the book Coyote Tales from 1933. The Great Spirit called all his people together from all over the earth. There was to be a change. He would give names to the people, and the animal world was to rule. The naming was to begin at the break of day, each one having the right to choose his or her name according to who came first to the Spirit Chief's lodge. The Spirit Chief would also give each their duty to perform in the changed conditions. It was the night before the new world. Excitement was among the people. Each one desired a great name of note. All wished to be awake for the first of the lodge of the Great Spirit Chief. Everyone wanted power to rule some tribes, some kingdoms of the animal world. Coyote was of a degraded nature, a vulgar type of life. He was an imitator of everything that he saw or heard. When he asked a question, when he asked for information and it was given to him, he would always say, "I knew that before. I did not have to be told." That was Coyote's way. He was hated by all the people for his ways. No one liked him. He boasted too much about his wisdom, about everything. Coyote went among the anxious people, bragging to everyone how early he was going to rise and how he would be the first one at the Spirit Chief's lodge. He bragged of the great name he would choose. He said, "I will have 3 big names to select from. There's Grizzly Bear, who will be the ruler over all running 4-footed animals. Eagle, who will lead all the flying birds. Salmon, who will be chief over all the fish of every kind." Coyote's twin brother, who took the name of Fox, said to him, "Do not be too sure. Maybe no one will be given his choice of names. Maybe you will have to retain your own name. Besides, it is a degraded name. No one among the tribes will want to take it, Coyote." Coyote went to his teepee in anger. He determined not to sleep that night. He would remain awake so as to be the first at the Spirit Chief's lodge for the name he wanted. Coyote's wife, afterwards Mole, sat on her feet at the side of the doorway. She looked up at Coyote and said in a disappointed tone, "Have you no food for the children? They are starving. I can find no roots to dig." "Aha," grunted Coyote sarcastically. He answered his wife, "I am no common person to be spoken to in that fashion by a mere woman. Do you know that I am going to be a great chief at daybreak tomorrow? I shall be Grizzly Bear. I will devour many enemies with ease. I will take other men's wives. I will need you no longer. You are growing too old, too ugly to be the wife of a great warrior, of a big chief, as I will be." Coyote ordered his wife to gather plenty of wood for the teepee fire where he would sit without sleep all night. Half of the night passed. Coyote grew sleepy. His eyes would close however hard he tried to keep them open. Then he thought what to do. He took 2 small sticks and braced his eyelids apart. He must not sleep, but before Coyote knew it, he was fast asleep. He was awakened by his wife, Mole, when she returned from the Spirit Chief's lodge, when the sun was high in the morning sky. Coyote jumped up from where he lay. He hurried to the lodge of the Chief Spirit. Nobody was there, and Coyote thought that he was first. He went into the lodge and spoke. "I am going to be Grizzly Bear." The chief answered, "Grizzly Bear was taken at daybreak." Coyote said, "Then I shall be called Eagle." The chief answered Coyote, "Eagle has been chosen. He flew away long ago." Coyote then said, "I think that I will be called Salmon." The Spirit Chief informed Coyote, "Salmon has also been taken. All the names have been used except your own, Coyote. No one wished to steal your name from you." Poor Coyote's knees grew weak. He sank down by the fire in the great teepee. The heart of the spirit chief was touched when he saw the lowered head of Coyote, the mischief maker. After a silence, the chief spoke. You are Coyote. You are the hated among all the tribes, among all the people. I have chosen you from among all the others to make you sleep, to go to the land of dream visions. I make a purpose for you, a big work for you to do before another change comes to the people. You are to be father for all the tribes, for all the new kind of people who are to come. Because you are so hated, degraded, and despised, you will be known as the trick person. You will have power to change yourself into anything, any object you wish when in danger or distress. There are man-eating monsters on the earth who are destroying the people. The tribes cannot increase and grow as I wish. These monsters must all be vanquished before the new people come. This is the work to do. I give you powers to kill these monsters. I have given you your twin brother Fox. I have given you both powers to help restore life should you be killed. Your bones may be scattered, but if there is one hair left on your body, Fox can bring you back to life. Now go, despised Coyote. Begin the work laid out for your trail. Do good for the benefit of your people. Thus Coyote of the animal people was sent about the earth to fight and destroy the people-devouring monsters, to prepare the land for the coming of the new people, the Indians. Coyote's eyes grew slant from their effects of the sticks with which he had braced them open that night when waiting for the dawn of the name-giving day. From this, the Indians have inherited their slightly slant eyes as descendants from Coyote.
Just going to interrupt our story here, guys, because I've come onto the trail, and here we have a spot where 2 days ago, this wasn't here, we had a huge windstorm. And this is what I would expect. I thought I heard a knock there. This is what I would expect to see from a windstorm. We've got 5 or 6 trees down on the trail. These weren't here 2 days ago, but this to me is much more natural than the one single tree that we found in the last video. I'll show you guys this. These are all new blowdowns that weren't here the other day. Did you hear that? Okay, I just heard something. Like a braying, howling. Okay, I'm gonna go with coyotes. That makes sense. I don't know. I can't even move. I can't even walk around right now because I can't see. I may have to turn on my headlamp, guys. I'm sorry, but I can't see where I'm going. I'm gonna kill myself out here. I don't know where we are in story time. Are we between stories? Did I have to wait to the end to put this up there? I don't know. I may have to splice and dice this to get it to fit so that the story isn't interrupted. But I just heard something and I hope it was caught on camera. I'm going to put my headlamp on moon glow. so at least I'll be able to see where I'm walking.
Our second story is Coyote and the Monster. This is from an unknown source. A long, long time ago, people did not yet inhabit the earth. A monster walked upon the land, eating all the animals, except Coyote. Coyote was angry that his friends were gone. He climbed the tallest mountain and attached himself to the top. Coyote called upon the monster, challenging it to try to eat him. The monster sucked in the air, hoping to pull in Coyote with its powerful breath. But the ropes were too strong. The monster tried many other ways to blow Coyote off the mountain, but it was no use. Realizing that Coyote was sly and clever, the monster thought of a new plan. It would befriend Coyote and invite him to stay in its home. Before the visit began, Coyote said that he wanted to visit his friends and asked if he could enter the monster's stomach to see them. The monster allowed Coyote to do this, and Coyote cut out its heart and set fire to its insides. His friends were freed. Then Coyote decided to make a new animal. He flung pieces of the monster in the 4 directions. Wherever the pieces landed, a new tribe of Indians emerged. He ran out of body parts before he could create a new human animal on the site where the monster had lain. He used the monster's blood, which was still on his hands, to create the Nez Perce, who would be strong and good.
There's something in there. And I didn't think it was Gage. I heard something. Could be deer, could be anything, but there is something in there. I knew that he had gone down the trail, which is down here.
Our next story is how Coyote stole fire. This is rumored to be a Cherokee legend. Long ago, when man was newly come into the world, there were days when he was the happiest creature of all. Those were the days when spring brushed across the willowtails, or when his children ripened with the blueberries in the sun of summer, or when the goldenrod bloomed in the autumn haze. But always the mists of autumn evenings grew more chill, and the sun's strokes grew shorter. Then man saw winter moving near, and he became fearful and unhappy. He was afraid for his children, and for his grandfathers and grandmothers, who carried in their heads the sacred tales of the tribe. Many of these, young and old, would die in the long, ice-bitter months of winter. Coyote, like the rest of the people, had no need for fire, so he seldom concerned himself with it until one spring day when he was passing a human village. There the women were singing a song of mourning for the babies and the old ones who had died in the winter. Their voices moaned like the wind through a buffalo skin, prickling the hairs on Coyote's neck. "Feel how the sun is now warm on our backs," one of the men was saying. "Feel how it warms the earth and makes these stories hot to the touch. If only we could have had a small piece of the sun in our teepees during winter." Coyote, overhearing this, felt sorry for the men and women. He also felt that there was something he could do to help them. He knew of a faraway mountaintop where 3 fire beings lived. These beings kept fire to themselves, guarding it carefully for fear that man might somehow acquire it and become as strong as they were. Coyote saw that he could do a good turn for man at the expense of the selfish fire beings. So Coyote went to the mountain of the fire beings and crept up to its top. He watched the way that the beings guarded the fire. As he approached, the beings leapt to their feet and gazed searchingly around their camp. Their eyes glinted like bloodstones, and their hands were clawed like the talons of the great black vulture. "What's that? What's that I hear?" hissed one of the beings. "A thief skulking in the bushes," screeched another. The third, looking more closely, saw Coyote. But he had gone to the mountain top on all 4s, so the beings thought she only saw an ordinary coyote slinking among the trees. "It's no one, it is nothing," she cried, and the others looked where she pointed and also saw only a gray coyote. They sat down again by their fire and paid Coyote no more attention. So he watched all day and night as the fire beings guarded the fire. He saw how they fed it pine cones and dry branches from the sycamore trees. He saw how they stamped furiously on runaway rivulets of flame that sometimes nibbled outwards on the edge of dry grass. He saw also how at night the beings took turns to sit by the fire. 2 would sleep while one was on guard, and at certain times the beings by the fire would get up and go into their teepee, and another would come out to sit by the fire. Coyote saw that the beings were as always jealous and watchful of the fire except during one part of the day. That was in the earliest morning, when the first winds of dawn arose in the mountains. Then the beings by the fire would be hungry, shivering, and into their teepee calling, "Sister, sister, go out and watch the fire." But the next being would always be slow to get out for her turn, her head spinning with sleep and the thin dreams of dawn. Coyote, seeing all this, went down the mountain and spoke to his friends among the people. He told them of hairless men fearing the cold and death of winter. And he told them of the fire beings and the warmth and brightness of the flame. They all agreed that man should have fire, and they all promised to help Coyote's undertaking. Then Coyote sped again to the mountain top. Again the fire beings leapt up when he came close, and one cried out, "What's that? A thief! A thief!" But again the others looked closely and saw only a gray coyote hunting among the bushes. So they sat down again and paid him no more attention. Coyote waited throughout the day and watched as night fell, and two of the beings went off to the teepee to sleep. He watched as they changed over at the certain times all night long, until at last the dawn winds rose. Then the beings on guard called, "Sister, sister, get up and watch the fire." And the being whose turn it was climbed slowly and sleepily from her bed, saying, "Yes, I am coming. Do not shout so." But before she could come out of the teepee, Coyote lunged from the bushes and snatched up a glowing portion of the fire and sprang away down the mountainside. Screaming, the fire beings flew after him. Swift as Coyote ran, they caught up with him. One of them reached out a clutching hand. Her fingers touched only the tip of his tail, but the touch was enough to turn the hairs white, and Coyote's tail tips are white to this day. Coyote shouted and flung the fire away from him, but the others of the people had gathered at the mountain's foot. Squirrel saw the fire falling and caught it, putting it on her back and fleeing away through the treetops. The fire scorched her back so painfully that her tail curled up and back as squirrels' tails still do to this day. The fire beings then pursued Squirrel, who threw the fire to Chipmunk. Chattering with fear, Chipmunk stood as still as if rooted until beings were almost upon her. Then as she turned to run, one being clawed at her, tearing down the length of her back and leaving 3 stripes that are to be seen on Chipmunk's. Chipmunk threw the fire to Frog, and the being turned toward him. One of the beings grasped his tail, but Frog gave a mighty leap and tore himself free, leaving his tail behind in the being's hand, which is why frogs have had no tails ever since. As the beings came after him again, Frog flung the fire onto the wood, and wood swallowed it. The fire beings gathered round, but they did not know how to get the fire out of the wood. They promised it gifts. They sang to it and shouted at it. They twisted it and struck it and tore it with their knives, but wood did not give up the fire. In the end, defeated, the beings went back to their mountain and left the people alone. But Coyote knew how to get fire out of wood, and he went to the village of men and showed them how. He showed them the trick of rubbing 2 dry sticks together and the trick of spinning and sharpening a stick in a hole made in another piece of wood. So man was from then on warm and safe through the killing cold of winter.
Jesus. Holy Jesus. Dude, you're freaking me out. Gage. Gage. Come here. Come on.
Good boy, let's go. Let's get out of here. Come on. Come on, let's go. That's it, I'm turning around because I just realized how far back here I am. And yeah, that I can't outrun anything at this distance, so. And I don't even want to turn around. I've got that feeling right now where you just don't want to put your back to whatever Gage was growling at. I don't even want to turn around. I don't even want to stop recording. I don't know what this is going to do for me. If I see eyes or something back there, or a shadow or something dark or whatever, it's not going to do anything for me. So why am I even looking? I don't know. I guess to get it on film. I guess that's the only logical answer. What were you growling at? Okay, I gotta turn around. I gotta look in front of me. Severely fighting the urge to run right now, but I can't do that. I was actually going to, I had another idea for tonight's walk and it didn't feel right. Something didn't feel right about it, so I didn't do it. But I was going to bring the second Sony camcorder, leave it on the trail behind me. I was going to start a little fire because tonight's stories dealt with fire, and I was just going to start a small one, you know, something that would burn for 25 minutes and leave the other night camera recording on that fire as we continued on down the trail just to see what we would capture. And something about that didn't feel right to me. It's almost like I would be inviting something to come and play at the fire, and I didn't like that idea. And I'm creeping myself out. The hair on the back of my neck just went up as I said that. I think it's a bad idea. You guys let me know what you think about that idea in the comments. I will not do that alone, I can tell you that right now. I would need somebody to come out here with me if I was going to do that. This morning I thought it was a great idea, but by this afternoon I just decided it didn't feel right.
The Origin of Eternal Death, from Edward S. Curtis, The North American Indian, Volume 8, 1911. Coyote had a wife and 2 children, and so had Eagle. Both families lived together. Eagle's wife and children died, and a few days later, Coyote experienced the same misfortune. As the latter wept, his companion said, "Do not mourn, that will not bring your wife back. Make ready your moccasins, and we will go somewhere." So the two prepared for a long journey and set out westward. After 4 days, they were close to the ocean. On one side of a body of water, they saw houses. Coyote called across, "Come with a boat." "Never mind, stop calling." Eagle produced an elderberry stalk and made a flute and put the end into the water and whistled. Soon they saw 2 persons come out of a house, walk to the water's edge and enter a canoe. Said Eagle, "Do not look at those people when they land." The boat drew near, but a few yards from the shore it stopped, and Eagle told his friend to close his eyes. He then took Coyote by the arm and leapt to the boat. The 2 persons paddled back, and when they stopped a short distance from the other side, Eagle again cautioned Coyote to close his eyes and then leapt ashore with him. They went to the village, where there were many houses, but no people were in sight. Everything was still as death. There was a very large underground house, into which they went. In it was found an old woman, sitting with her face to the wall, and lying on the floor on the other side of the room was the moon. They sat down near the wall. "Coyote," whispered Eagle, "watch the woman and see what she does when the sun goes down." Just before the sun set, they heard a voice outside calling, "Get up! Hurry! The sun is going down, and it will soon be night. Hurry! Hurry!" Coyote and Eagle still sat in the corner of the chamber and watched the old woman. People began to enter, many hundreds of them.
men, women, and children. Coyote, as he watched, saw Eagle's wife and 2 daughters among them, and soon afterward his own family. When the room was filled, Nikshmasht, the old woman, cried, "Are all in?" Then she turned about, and from a squatting posture she jumped forward, then again and again, 5 times in all, until she alighted in a small pit beside the moon. This she raised and swallowed, and at once it was pitch dark. The people wandered about hither and thither, crowding, jostling, unable to see. About daylight, a voice from outside cried, "Nikashmasht, all get through." The old woman then disgorged the moon and laid it back in its place on the floor. All the people filed out, and the woman, Eagle, and Coyote were once more alone. "Now, Coyote," said Eagle, "could you do that?" "Yes, I can do that," he said. They went out, and Coyote, at Eagle's direction, made a box of boards as large as he could carry, and he put into it leaves from every kind of tree and blades from every kind of grass. "Well," said Eagle, "if you are sure, remember just how she did it. Let us go in and kill her." So they entered the house and killed her and buried the body. Her dress they took off and put on Coyote so that he looked just like her, and he sat down in her place. Eagle then told him to practice what he had seen by turning around and jumping as the old woman had done. So Coyote turned about and jumped 5 times, but the last leap was a little short, yet he managed to slide into the hole. He put the moon into his mouth, but try as he would, a thin edge still showed, and he covered it with his hands. Then he laid it back into its place and resumed his seat by the wall, waiting for sunset and the voice of the chief outside. The day passed and the voice called and the people entered. Coyote turned about and began to jump. Some thought there was something strange about the manner of jumping, but others said it was really the old woman. When he came to the last jump and slipped into the pit, many cried out that this was not the old woman. But Coyote quickly lifted the moon and put it into his mouth, covering the edge with his hands. When it was completely dark, Eagle placed the box in the doorway. Throughout the long night, Coyote retained the moon in his mouth until he was almost choking. But at last the voice of the chief was heard from the outside, and the dead began to file out. Everyone walked into the box, and Eagle quickly threw the cover over it and tied it. The sound was like that of a great swarm of flies. "Now, my brother, we are through," said Eagle. Coyote removed the dress and laid it down beside the moon, and Eagle threw the moon into the sky, where it remained. The 2 entered the canoe with the box and paddled towards the east. When they landed, Eagle carried the box. Near the end of the 3rd night, Coyote heard someone talking. There seemed to be many voices. He wakened his companion and said, "There are many people coming." "Do not worry," said Eagle, "it is all right." The following night, Coyote heard the talking again and looked about. He discovered that the voices came from the box, which Eagle had been carrying. He placed his ear against it, and after a while distinguished the voice of his wife. He smiled and broke into laughter, but he said nothing to Eagle. At the end of the 5th night and the beginning of the last day of travel, he said to his friend, "I will carry the box now. You have carried it a long way." "No," replied Eagle, "I will take it. I am strong. Let me carry it. Suppose we come to where people live and they should see the chief carrying the load. How would that look?" Still, Eagle retained his hold in the box, but as they went along, Coyote kept begging, and about noon, wearying of the subject, Eagle gave him the box. So Coyote had the load, and every time he heard the voice of his wife, he would laugh. After a while, he contrived to fall behind, and when Eagle was out of sight, around a hill, he began to open the box, in order to release his wife. But no sooner was the cover lifted than it was thrown back violently, and the dead people rushed out into the air with such force that Coyote was thrown to the ground. They quickly disappeared in the west. Eagle saw the cloud of dead people rising in the air and came hurrying back. He found one man left there, a cripple who had been unable to rise. He threw him into the air, and the dead man floated away swiftly. "You see what you have done with your curiosity and haste," said Eagle. "If we had brought these dead all the way back, people would not die forever, but only for a season, like the plants, whose leaves we have brought. Hereafter trees and grasses will die only in the winter, but in the spring they will green again. So it would have been with the people." "Let us go back and catch them again," proposed Coyote, but Eagle objected. "They will not go to the same place, and we would not know how to find them. They will be where the moon is, up in the sky."
Whew, okay.
We are back at the edge of my yard. I'm not gonna lie, guys, that was probably the most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me. The dog just, the hackles went up, he started growling, and then the next thing I was fighting for balance. I was in a mud hole, turned, stepped, the other foot was in a mud hole, and down I went, couldn't get up, and there I am laying on my back helpless as the dog is growling. Honest to God, if I could have got up and run in terror, I would have, but my feet were stuck in the mud. And then it was sheer panic from that point on to come back out of that trail. And I just felt like something was watching me the whole way. I didn't hear anything, but I just, the hair on the back of my neck was up, and I had to fight the urge to run. That basic instinct of survival to get the hell out of here. So, you know what? I think I'm braver than I think I am, because I just walked 1.5 miles back there, and not too many other people I know would do that. So I'm gonna give myself a little bit of credit, but I am gonna have to change my underwear when I get back to the house. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this was a good video. Let me know if you like this format with the stories, with the outing. Stay tuned, lots more to come.